thinking of what you said earlier about how material from players tended to sort of fall back on these, what we might call a narrow reference pool, a very Western European sort of thing, and how the original material didn't quite reflect this. And I think that's interesting as a person who has come to RuneQuest very much as a latecomer for natural reasons, a person who has collected books more or less willy-nilly by finding them in auctions and second-hand stores and such, is that it really does also reflect a sort of state of gaming which does not exist today, where, as you said before, the Dungeons and Dragons fantasy had not yet come into being. There was not yet hammered out a generic, this is what fantasy contains. In that respect, it's very much like another great creation from the same era, the world of Tekkamel.
I was going to mention Tekkamel in a few minutes, yes.
And
waiting for this, yes.
And I think that this, it is an originality in a dual sense of the world, both that it is highly original and also that it is the origins of gaming. And I find that this is something that needs to be valued in the when we reproduce this in Swedish. It's the fact that this is a game which is fundamentally not Eurocentric.
It says here in this version of RuneQuest does not quite take Glorantha as a canonical setting. It provides introductions to it, it has examples set in Glorantha, and it has monsters of Glorantha. But its rules are a toolbox to create your own pantheon. And it's very highly recommended in the book that you do this. But in its discussion of Glorantha, so it's a little schizophrenic, it is and isn't this setting. But here it says, in relation to what you were saying, and this, I remember this quite strongly as a child, or a tween. What was I when I bought this? 15? I was about 15, I think.
A teen.
Yeah, a teen. Good teen by then. Glorantha is an ancient period and early Dark Ages world. It has far more to do with Mesopotamia, ancient China, Hyboria, and Lankhmar than it does with medieval Europe, Le Morte d'Arthur, or the Carolingian cycle. Its heroes are Conans, Grey Mousers, and Rustums, not Lancelots, Percivals, and Rolands. Now, there are a couple of insights buried in here. First of all, this is before the Conan movie. And so Conan does not have the same cultural reference points that he has had ever since, number one. And number two, artistic depictions of the Grey Mouser sometimes forget exactly what Liber wrote, and also that Lankhmar in the original stories was actually Tyre. And therefore, and Grey Mouser was a native, and he's described as dark-skinned, and is very clearly an Arab character.
Yeah.
And so the reader here, I think, this is before Michael Whalen pictures of the Grey Mouser that sort of establish what he's supposed to look like. The reader here kind of knows what they're talking about when they read that. At that era, in the context of reading in that era, they go, oh, and they know that they shift 1,000 miles over.
And a lot of more people had read the Conan short stories.
That's
and
right. Yeah.
Liber at that time.
Exactly.
They were quite influential.
Well, we didn't have movies of these things. We didn't have games of these things. We didn't have comics of we had the Conan the Barbarian comic, which is the only adaptation that cared what was in the books in history. So it was, it is this anthropological approach that fascinates me, because it was, of course, limited in many ways, but it was at least well read. How it gets communicated in the games as we go along has been an up and down phenomenon. Only this last publication really committed to saying this is the visual appearance of what we are talking about.
Yeah.
And that has been one of the main points made with the release of the new edition, that now, for the first time perhaps, it is much more firmly embedded into
Exactly.
Glorantha.
It's been there from the beginning.
It's been there, exactly, but it was much more loose and malleable for yourself to form. And I still think, from the impression I get, is that, you know, shape your own world as you want it, but at least here's the way it looks. Here's for the first time the full picture, and I think that's quite interesting. It's massive material, of course, but it's very interesting as well.
I definitely find myself torn between the appreciation of putting it all together. Here it is. Okay, you know, someone has finally pulled these texts and debates and things and had their committee meetings to decide, you know, what we are going to show as this massive thing. And here, the reference points to White Bear and Red Moon that the reader of RuneQuest has no idea what they're talking about. And who knew until the RuneQuest Companion was published a little bit later? Who knew that there was a whole sea directly to the south of the maps in this book? I didn't. you know, Prax is on a coast, and that's all, or Pavis is on a coast, and that's all you know. And then, you know, there's a what?
There's another continent on the other
what on
side.
earth? Well, no, that's even later, right? So, I'm just, you know, I think that piecemeal approach from coming at it and just to clarify, we are contemporaries in this.
Yes.
So because I am, you know, trying to play in 1982 and 83, and I am saying I'm baffled and frustrated. It says here in the back of, you're supposed to send in a little coupon saying what you want more information about somewhere. I think it's in one of my other supplements. Yes, it says, you know, send this in, and what do you want? And of course, I was like, Lunar Empire. Never mind their little missionary cult. Lunar Empire, send it. I want a map. I want, you know. And of course, now we have such a thing, and I love it, but there's a certain value to the frustration and bafflement of not having it. And so I am torn. I think all of many people feel this slight rift, and we have to live with it. We can't go back in time. But what can be done with the presentation?
I think we can help with the presentation, help people to take a point of view when they play, not to take a bird's eye view of the world, not to look at the whole map. Because if you're a clan warrior from Sartar, or if you're a brew, then you have a very limited view of the world, of the physical world. But everybody in Glorantha has this view of the physical world and the metaphysical, godly world mixed together. They are one. They're intertwined. They are intimately connected.
Confirm it every holy day. So yes.
Yes. So that is your worldview, and that is a common worldview for every creature in this world. That links them together more than a map or political divisions or anything.
Hero Wars was the first to try to articulate that player characters' judgments of their own limited view, that through time they would develop a judgment of their own values, and that they would, in the course of hero questing, begin to alter the framework, the metaphysical framework of this world. And so therefore the player characters through the players through the agency of their heroes would actually be shaping the world to come, the mundane world to come when the age of heroes is gone, the hero wars are over, which we will never see.
No.
We'll never see it in play, or it will never be part of the setting. We just know the age of heroes will end. And Yet, what will be its prevailing values? What will be the myths of the Age of Heroes that will be drawn upon as psychological terms, centuries and centuries ahead? And Hero Wars, and then some of the text in HeroQuest, was extremely explicit to say, you do that. We are giving you the points of view that your heroes are supposed to transcend. And I know that it has been an ambition for a long time, because I can show you. Sources to be published. 1. Masters of Luck and Death, the third board game in the Dragon Pass trilogy. Did we ever see a board game, Masters of Luck and Death? Nope. No. The Hero Wars, a history of the world of Glorantha, profusely illustrated with many maps. This will also provide many specific HeroQuest paths for the Third Age.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
I wonder why I missed it.
Well, the game Hero Wars and HeroQuest,
Yeah.
you can see that's where they were stepping. HeroQuest, a fantasy role-playing game wherein the mighty of Glorantha may enter into the lands of legend and myth, penetrating the immortal stories to participate in the gods' war, fight against chaos in the great darkness, or aid in the trials of the Lightbringers or the Protectors, a revolutionary concept and approach to myth, magic, and role-playing by the Chaosium. The Pavis campaign, material drawn from the campaign of Steve Perrin. I'd like to talk about Pavis in just a moment as well, and what it is. The Sartor campaign, maps, personalities, histories, etc., tribal specifics, an extensive road encounters section, obviously first on everybody's wish list, and based on the campaign led by Greg Stafford. And more. It promises Cults 2, the Dark Troll campaigns, which we did see, right, and ultimately with beautiful, amazing work on trolls. The Elf campaigns, which we didn't. The Mostali campaigns, the Lunar Cults. He promised. And the Grayslands campaign, and there's more. Then it ends with etc.
Yeah.
So you can see where they were, what they were thinking. I think that Hero Wars, which is, we haven't mentioned now, now HeroQuest, and has now also been released in the latest of, I think, some refinements, it's going to be quite fascinating to have the new HeroQuest and the new RuneQuest next to one another. They're deliberately intended to be different play experiences, and HeroQuest took that paragraph to heart and said, you are walking into the God time, and you can change it. And what do you mean? What do you care about?